We worked out a technical issue. I think Carolyn is ready. I'm really looking forward to this lecture. I bet you are too. I'm going to pull up Carolyn's bio. I've got it here. I just met Carolyn this weekend. She's really cool. So I'm going to read her bio. Carolyn LaRocque is the founder of the Lakes Region Disclosure Support Network. She's a 30-year ufology enthusiast and a retired environmental biologist. Currently, she's working to spread awareness of the existence of the secret space programs, plural, and supporting the full disclosure movement. Carolyn's father is an electrical mechanical engineer who worked for DoD contractors his entire professional career. Her interest in ufology and advanced technology began when she learned of her father's involvement in advanced tech development and saw pictures of artificial structures on the far side of the moon. Carolyn will be sharing a brief history of her father's work on advanced technology development related to the secret space program, and a description of her goals in running the Lakes Region Disclosure Support Network.
Saucers group, because last June, a year ago, I had an experience myself, and I was in need of talking with somebody. And given my 30 years, I knew it was significant, and I didn't really have anyone to talk to, so I came here to this festival last year specifically to find the Seacoast Saucers group. And I did, and they have helped me overcome a lot of hurdles, and I'm really glad that I made the trip here to get involved with them. So I ended up, yeah, they really helped me a lot. So I decided to start the Lakes Region Disclosure Support Network because I really felt like the time has come that we just need to end some of the social programming and get people to feel free and safe to talk in public, to end the crazy label, promote open dialogue on all the topics with no fear of ridicule, rejection, or loss. And I was having those fears, and after going to see the Seacoast Saucers group, I decided I'm scrapping that fear. So I have been doing some presentations which were primarily on the secret space program from last January into June. And this is a new presentation I'm doing because Richard was here, and I'm not going to talk about this secret space program when Richard was talking about the secret space program. But this is another one of my areas that has been on my list to talk about for a very long time. I've been looking at some things for probably since 2012. So that's what I'm going to mostly talk about today. But a quick overview on my dad. These are just some highlights of some of the companies that are DoD contractors that he has worked for, and some outline of the type of project work that he did for them. And that's a picture of he and I about 5 or 6 years ago. He's still living, and he's 82 now, so we've actually been able to talk a lot more openly than we had in the past about his work. And when I was younger, he would periodically share some information, like I was fascinated to know that he was working on control technology for magnetic levitation trams, which he was told were going to replace all our mass transit in the country. And he was thrilled, and me as a inspiring environmentalist, I was thrilled. And he was working on that for a while, and he came home one day and just said that the project had been scrapped, and they'd all been reassigned, and they didn't really get any explanation as to why. And of course, as an environmentalist, I was really upset about it, and he seemed to be more upset, and I didn't really know at the time why. But since then, we've talked, and I found out that he had been at the Nevada test site where they actually had tested some of these tram systems. And so we were talking about how strange, why would they test it at the Nevada test site if it was supposed to replace mass transit? It just, but apparently while he was there also, he came into knowledge of some genetic type experiments and things from people he was working with. And one of my life-changing moments was coming in with some friends. We were going to sit and play some poker with my dad and hang out. We had nothing else to do. And we came in, and he was reading a book on Easter Island, and we get over to the table, and we could see he was upset, and he slammed the book shut, and he said, "God, I just hope this isn't a big experiment," and he was very upset. And I knew at that point there was something going on, and he wouldn't really talk about it, and not until recently. So we have talked about it since, and so we're going to get into a little bit that later. I do talk about it in my other presentation, but today we are mostly going to focus on these guys. They are planet-sized spheres that we've been seeing interacting with our sun. I've seen them since at least 2012. I don't know if they've been in and around longer than that, probably. But I have some video I'm going to share with you. And my big interest in it is because there are a lot of fear mongers out there right now that are saying a lot of things implying that there's going to be a giant solar flash event and, you know, scaring people. And I have a completely different opinion of that. I don't have this fear of what's going on at all, and I hope to share that with you so that if you do decide to look into some of these videos and the science behind what I'm going to tell you today, that you're not going to be doing it with trepidation, that you'll have a positive, inspiring view of it rather than a negative, fearful one. Okay, so that's my goal today, and hopefully I can do that. So let's play the first video, and Alex is helping me. Hopefully we can get this smoothly. So.
Mein Name ist Pet.
Hey guys, it's Sunday, March 11th, about 11:10 Mountain Time, 2012. What I'm looking at is a J-Helio viewer using the SDO AIA 171 filter on the SDO spacecraft. My friend Suns Flare posted a video a couple hours ago about this observation he made right down here on the southeastern limb of the sun. Got a humongous plasma vortex extending from the sun out into the corona, and in the corona there appears to be a round sphere, possibly two. If you look back here in the back behind this one, this loop is from yesterday and then up to today. You see one start to form back here as the Earth passes between the satellite and the sun. I guess that's the Earth. I've never seen it do acrobatics quite like that. I'm not saying the Earth did acrobatics, but see how it was horizontal and vertical. But nevertheless, it's been told to me that that's the Earth. So it is what it is. But what are we looking at here? This round sphere, right? There goes a magnetic filament. And then it's just right there. It's totally obvious. I'm going to put the magnifier on it, so please bear with me. The screen's going to go white. And there it is. There's the plasma vortex. Kind of reminds me of an umbilical cord that's feeding a plasma sphere. Totally new one to me. It's very, very interesting to say the least. So it'll be worth keeping an eye on for sure. I don't know if we're witnessing something extraordinary here. It is to me. I've never seen anything like that. That's clearly a round sphere that has some sort of energy of its own to be able to do that up against the sun and the corona. It's also visible on the SOHO spacecraft. You can see it right down here. I'm going to put the magnifier on it one more time. You can see it down there too, and this is through a different filter. I believe this one's the 304, yeah. So anyway, here's Suns Flare's video, breaking unidentified object, sun, March 11th, 2012. And you can see it clearly there on his too. So I don't know if we're witnessing something extraordinary here, guys, or exactly what to even call this, but I don't know. It's very, very interesting. Almost looks like the sun's given birth to a planet. I'm not saying it's a planet yet, but it's got to start somehow. Starts out as a sphere, and then, you know, she releases the umbilical cord, and away it goes. Starts collecting cosmic dust, and many, many years later, you have a planet. It's just a theory. I don't know, but that's quite extraordinary. Very, very interesting. So I'll leave it to you guys to decide. And I'll post the links down below. So anyway, have a great day, guys. Talk to you later.
Okay, so has anyone seen any of these kind of videos before? Yeah, so you're familiar with it. How many are not, that this is new? Okay, wow. All right, well, don't freak out, okay? Also, keep in mind that when I'm talking about this, I'm an environmental biologist. I'm not a trained researcher or journalist. I'm just trying to share some of this because this is still fascinating for me, and I'm still looking into it, and I'm still trying to get people to talk about it. And as of 2016, NASA has started covering pictures of these guys up with pixelated boxes, and I have pictures of that to show you as well. So, are we ready to go? Okay. So my big question is, why are they here? We've seen numbers of pictures. So we've got, I think this has a little thing on it, doesn't it? A laser pointer? Oh, maybe not. Anyway, we've seen the pictures. In the red box, it actually looks like there's multiple spheres, some in around the back, okay? We see these other types here that are not attached to the sun, and we've seen similar crop circle images. People have interpreted the crop circle as an indication that there is going to be some kind of solar flash. Other people have interpreted it many other different ways. So what I wanted to look at was, why are these giant ships? Some of them are long rod looking, some of them are little drone looking, some of them look like planets, but they seem to be regularly interacting with the sun. And this is an example of NASA covering it up. So you can see how they put these black boxes, and this is just from 2016. All right, so my opinion has been, oops, I don't want to go there yet, has been that I think that they are here managing interplanetary climate change. And there are actual data and information that has come from probes like Voyager 1 and 2, and I'm sure if the secret space program is really active, they've had more than just those two little probes out there investigating what's going on. So what the theory is that I just wanted to share, I'm not saying it's right, it's just, it's piquing my curiosity, and it seems to be, some of the evidence seems to indicate that we are experiencing interplanetary climate change. So what the theory is, that our entire solar system has moved into a more energetic region of space, and that has caused the heliosphere to become more energetic, which has caused the solar system to start heating up. And I'm going to list you a bunch of the data that they are using to say this is what's happening. And I'm not saying it's right, I don't know. I'm not an astrophysicist, and I don't have all the data, but this is where I'm leading to think that that could be right. So whether or not there'll be a solar flash, I don't know. We're going to get to that too. The other thing I wanted to mention today was, if anyone's ever read Norman Bergman's book from the 80s called The Ringmakers of Saturn, another example of where there's a huge, multiple huge ships or whatever that are interacting regularly with the rings of Saturn. And if you look at, if you read the book, he makes a point to say that it looks like it's traveling through the rings, collecting some of the debris or whatever it is in one end of these ships, and out the back end is leaving a trail of something else. And they look at all different types of craft or whatever that is out there by Saturn, including the long cigar-shaped, something that looks like a planetoid, something that looks more like a ship. And in my opinion, from my experience working, what I see is, again, our history of our solar system being rewritten. To me, this looks like a demolition project. They're taking debris from whatever the rings were made of and making it into smaller particles. Now, if you ever watched Cosmic Disclosure or Wisdom Teachings or some of these other shows on Gaia, they discuss that perhaps Saturn's rings were at one time a solid ring that was a giant weapon, complete with rooms and, you know, quarters for whoever to be working there. And they have witnesses from the secret space program, and even I think some NASA insiders that have said that what they have found were pieces of rooms and furniture, and some of these rooms could accommodate somebody between 30 and 70 feet tall. And so in my opinion, it looks to me like they are going through and a demolition project is the best way I can explain it to me. That's just my interpretation. I haven't heard anyone else say that. Norman doesn't go there in his book. He talks about other things, which is fascinating. And you can't really get it affordably anymore, like through Amazon, but there are online copies that I got a hold of. So if anybody wants that, I can tell you where to get it afterwards. Now, the other thing is some of the researchers, like David Wilcock, but also other people, have theorized that these spheres and ancient prophecies of ascension are related to a solar flash or solar shift event that has been described by both scientific researchers and secret space program insiders, and that the Earth is indeed experiencing interplanetary climate change. So, does anyone know, has anyone not heard of the solar flash or the ascension event? Raise your hand if you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm going to give you the details of that in a few slides. But first, I wanted to talk about some of the evidence that they're using and saying out in public and on shows that are on Gaia. They're saying that the evidence is that the heliosphere is charged up, and I'm going to discuss a Russian scientist who has actually put together some research and published a book on this. And that in turn is causing the solar system to heat up, and we're going to look at some evidence from NASA and our own scientists that can kind of verify that there have been changes that could be related to that. And then we're going to look at some recent spikes in the Schumann resonance field. Now, there's other things that they list, including violent weather increases and geological events, emergency plans and climate engineering, but we don't have time to get into all that today. But that is also presented as evidence that they are expecting this solar flash. So let me get into, in case you don't know what the heliosphere looks like, the yellow dot in the center is our sun, and then you can't really see it really well because it's too light in here, but the orbits of the planets are there. And then Voyager 1 and 2 are breaking beyond into the heliosphere, which is the egg shape. And then the energetic area of space is represented by this yellow over here. So what they're saying is that we are moving into that, and because the density of that space is more energetic, it's heating up the heliosphere. And David Wilcock presents this in multiple seasons of his show Wisdom Teaching, but there's also a lot of other researchers who are also talking about this. And I have a slide at the end that I'll show you that lists all the references, so if you wanted to look into it. Now, David primarily talks about the work of Dr. Alexei Dmitriev, who's a Russian astrophysicist, and he talks about it on his show as well as in some of his books. And Dr. Dmitriev has published a book called Planetophysical State of the Earth and Life. So if you really want to read his work and not David Wilcock's, you can do that. Now, Dmitriev states that our heliosphere, the egg shape there, is charged up with 1,000 times more energetic particles than it had in the 1960s. And he is saying that this is significant. Furthermore, his research indicates that the heliosphere is currently oscillating between third and fourth density. This is what he is interpreting, what the data that he's collecting. These findings support many reports from NASA insiders and secret space program insiders, as well as some of the ancient religious texts and cultural prophecies that we are going to transition our whole solar system, including us, from a third density existence to a fourth density existence, and that the solar flash is what's going to initiate that. I'm going to get into that in detail in a minute. So before we do that, actually, let me give you the evidence of the solar system heating up. All right, they list from NASA actually that Neptune and Uranus have had pole shifts. They talk about Jupiter's magnetic fields have doubled, that Saturn's auroras are energetically charged and correlate to some of this solar activity, that Mars has increased its atmosphere by 2,000% and the ice caps are melting on Mars, same as here, that Venus has decreased its sulfuric gases and increased in brightness. Our moon and Mercury are forming new atmospheres. Whether that's terraforming or a result of something like this, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. This is what I'm trying to say is we need people to talk about this, and we're not hearing it from NASA. On the Earth, we have seen an increase in magnitude and number of earthquakes from 1971 to 1997, and volcanic activity has increased from 1875 to 1990. David Wilcock does go into a lot of detail on this and has really good graphics. In his Divine Cosmos website, he has a digital books on there, and in chapter 8, he has a chapter, it's called Transformation of the Solar System, and he really gets into some of this detail in much greater detail and far better than I would be able to do, especially in an hour. So let me look at another thing. Okay, the space domain. So how do we know we've entered into a more highly charged space domain? Again, David Wilcock addresses this in his show on Gaia and in some of his books, and he does a wonderful job with it. And he took several seasons, from season 23 up to the present one, 27. It's all intermixed in there with some of his other information, but he spends a good amount of time talking about the work of Dr. Harold Aspin of Cambridge University, and he refers to the fabric of space-time as ether. This is Dr. Aspin that he's talking about. And it has varying levels of density that he calls space domains. And we've also seen other reports and articles on this, which I have referenced at the end. I'll show you. Now, each level of density corresponds to the number of electrons, or what he calls photons, and positrons that it can hold. Okay, so the third density can hold so many, the fourth density is going to hold less. And that's what he says, that the transition from third density to fourth density means that the ether in the domain of the fourth density holds less of these particles than the third. So therefore, as we move into the new domain, the solar system heats up until it reaches a critical threshold where it must release a burst of these charged particles in order to fit into the new density and vibratory frequency. And in that release of the photons, electrons, that is the solar flash. So there's a lot of people out there freaking out about this. They think it means the end of the world as we know it, and I disagree, because it was supposed to happen in 2012. They made big hype about it, but that never happened, did it? No, and I believe it's because these giant spheres are here, and they are managing it, and they are slowing it down so that we have time to make the transition. And I'm going to explain what that means for us. But in the meantime, just to give you a little breath, I'm going to play another one of the videos from, oh, we won't go there yet. Yeah, I do want to go there. Also in the crop circles, they have been trying to teach us this as well. Okay, the Metatron's cube, see how it has the cube with all the spheres? They're trying to explain the density of the domains of space, okay? And then you see it with all this triangles around it. It's supposed to imply the solar flash. Anyway, so that's something that people talk about a lot. Before we go on to this, yes, okay. So here we have a look at our Earth with our ionosphere. So the Schumann resonance is anything that can affect the Schumann resonance, it's affecting the ionosphere. And so what a lot of these researchers are saying is that we've had spikes in the Schumann resonance up as high as 40. It's supposed to be, when I was born, it was 7.83 hertz, and we've had spikes since then, and as high as 40. Now, lightning and other things like that cannot cause a spike of 40, okay? But perhaps if the heliosphere is, if we're moving into this higher energetic area, perhaps that could. So let's play this second video, if you don't mind, Alex, because again, my favorite solar weather guy tries to put us all at ease about this transition and how it might affect us if it does. And let's just listen to what he says.
Time 2017, the Schumann resonance. And as you can clearly see from this graph right here, yes, it has spiked once again. It's above 40 hertz as I do this video, has been for the past several hours. That's the frequency of planet Earth, Earth's natural heartbeat. And we as living creatures on planet Earth are hardwired to that frequency. That is a proven scientific fact that this frequency does impact our brain waves and your nervous system. So if you felt a little anxious today, maybe just a little out of sorts in general, just know that it's going to be okay. This is why. Earth is vibrating at a much different frequency than we've been used to for most of our lives. Back in 2014, there was an increase detected, and it went up between 15 and 25 hertz. Today it's above 40. So it's getting stronger as time moves forward. And there's a lot of good information out there about the Schumann resonance and the shift in consciousness. I'm going to read a little bit about it here from Joe Dispenza's blog. He's a doctor, studies this phenomenon, and it's a very real phenomenon. But on January 31st, 2017, the Schumann resonance reached frequencies of 36 plus hertz. Well, today, August 3rd, it reached over 40 hertz. And that was considered an anomaly when in 2014 this frequency rose from its usual 7.83. And that's what I was born in, 7.83. So, yeah, these changes in the Schumann resonance, do they affect me? Of course they do. Absolutely, just like they affect you. So just know that it's going to be okay. This is what's going on. So yeah, it says right here, when it jumps from 7.83 to 36 plus, it is a big deal. That's more than a 5-fold increase in the resonant frequency levels. What does this mean to us as inhabitants of planet Earth? According to neuroscience, frequency recordings of 36 plus hertz, and that would include today's of 40 plus, in the human brain are more associated with stressed nervous systems opposed to a relaxed, healthy one. So that's why I said earlier, if you felt a little anxious today, this is why, all right? So just know it's going to be all right. It has long been suspected that human consciousness can impact the magnetic field of Earth. That's hard to believe, isn't it? But it's true. And can create disturbances in it and vice versa. Particularly during moments of high anxiety, tension, and passion. If you aren't aware that we're living in a time of high anxiety, tension, and passion, then you're probably just simply not aware. But in addition to the highly charged political, social, and economic and personal environments of our current time, many people have also been feeling like time is speeding up. And I agree with that. I mean, there's been days, many days, that I felt like time has gone by much quicker than others. And I know a lot of you can relate to that too. It's the truth. This might explain these intense disturbance. This might explain the intense disturbance most of us are feeling at this time in history. Could the drastic rise in the frequency have something to do with this? I think so. We're hardwired to that frequency, and there's just simply no escaping it. So we will adapt, and it will be okay. As we know from science, the higher the frequency, the more highly diversified the information those frequencies carry. Since we are organic creatures made of matter and susceptible to electromagnetic fields, and we very much are, and because our lives are inseparable from the planet, then if Earth's frequency is rising, ours will too. As we know from science, increases in the frequency creates increases in consciousness. When our consciousness increases, we have greater awareness. And that's what gamma brain waves are. Gamma brain waves, which can be more than twice as high as beta brain waves, represent an aroused state in the brain. However, they are not connected to the survival states of emergency mode, but correlated with a kind of super consciousness, super awareness, as well as higher amounts of love and compassion. As the Earth goes through this metamorphosis, maybe we too have to transition through this time of emotional intensity related to beta brain waves before we enter the new consciousness of gamma brain waves. And that upgrade to our nervous system would expand our perception of awareness and reality. And I completely agree with that. And right here is why you're feeling the way that you do today, you know. So you're just part of the process. So am I. The Schumann resonance, though, today is above 40 hertz. That is an unprecedented level. And it's been at that level for many hours today. So this is definitely a big deal. I'll keep you guys updated as time moves forward. But like I've said for the last 2, maybe 3 years, during these uncertain times, I encourage you to be brave, be strong, be wise, and know this, it's going to be okay. Thanks for watching.
I just love his voice. Very soothing. So I don't know if any of you have been following any of this, but it's been fascinating me since 2012. And I really don't know all that much about the Schumann resonance field and a lot of these details, so I obviously can only speak conceptually for you. But if you want the math and the research, it is there and you can find it. So what are the effects? Now this is where the fear mongering, I feel, has been a little over the top. They're talking about violent weather and geological activity, pole shifts, landmass changes, the electrical grid going down. But basically, physics as we know it are going to change. You can't just change the density of us without physics changing. So I can't explain it, but the other thing is the activation of DNA that was previously dormant. This is where I'm very fascinated. We're gonna, like he was saying, expanded consciousness and awareness of universal truths in the dawn of a golden age of humanity. And you know, I can't reinforce this enough that we are connected to the earth. So if it does change, we are also going to change. Some people will go as far as saying that this change is what the Bible talks about as Jacob's ladder. Even some scientists are talking this way, that the double helix is the ladder. And as more of it becomes activated, we become more godlike or whatever. Okay, we're going to have more abilities, awareness. We're going to be more familiar with universal truths. And this is found in some of the Hindu ancient texts. If you want to find more information on it, you can look up Samvarta fire or Samvartika or Samvata fire and Samavartika. And David Wilcock also gives you some really good ways to search for that and how to interpret it. So I really encourage people, if this is fascinating to you, there is a lot of information coming out there now. So my big question is, after seeing a lot of these videos of the spheres specifically, are they biological entities or are they ships? And the reason I say that is, as a biologist, I've spent a lot of time looking through microscopes at single-celled organisms and plankton and, you know, all the stuff in water and soil. And to me, this third video looks very biological. So why don't you play that for us, Alex? For me, that looked like something living that just broke away, and I find that fascinating. Okay, and we kind of touched on why they're here. I'm going to talk about that more in a minute, but my overall theory is in line with a lot of the research out there that I really think that they are here, that they are advanced ET races, and they're managing the sun as we move into this new domain of space, and they are basically buffering the effects that this domain is having on our sun. For instance, they've been filmed controlling coronal mass ejections, a number of videos on that, and controlling, I think, the solar flash event itself, if there really was going to be one, in order to ensure our survival. They're essentially making the process more gradual. That's my opinion. And I would like to show you the fourth video because it actually shows one of them, and it's narrated. It's a NASA video, and it does show, it seems to look like the sphere is blocking a CME and making it go back to the surface of the sun. So why don't you try that one, Alex?
Hello, Suns Player here. It is May 25th, 2012. This is a follow-up to a video I made earlier today. If you'll watch this area, you'll see a black sphere come into view. I'm going to rewind this. Notice it pierced through the corona here, almost like an object went through a cloud. You'll see it come from behind this dense portion of the corona and burst through. See right there? You can actually see it penetrating through the visible portion of the corona. It has a little rotation to it as far as the filament associated with it. This is where it gets weird. It just parks. Usually when you see a filament eruption, this would be pushed off with the filament as well. And this comes to this point and just parks right there. It's kind of stubborn. Now this is the very interesting part when I add the 304 layer. To my knowledge, this coronal cavity should not park and then actually deflect the filament eruption. Watch this. See that? It's actually catching the filament is going around it. It has blocked it. There is no visible CME from this standpoint, and actually falls back to the surface. When we lose the 211 layer, I can go ahead and knock that layer off and finish watching the 304 layer fall back to the sun. That is wild. Lucy, you got some explaining to do because I don't understand this one. We have a pretty flare we caught just there. C-class. It looks like it'd be more impressive, but I believe it's rated as C. But this is very boggling to me. As much as I've paid attention to this and tried to learn as much as I could, this does not make sense. If you have an idea, let me know. Have a great night. Thanks.
Doing a great job, Alex. You got a future in AV, I think. Good. We can leave it right there. So those are the four videos I wanted to show you, and I just can't say enough that to me, when I look at that, I am very, very enthusiastic and positive that whatever those are, if they're advanced races or biological entities, I don't know, but either way, to me, it seems like they're protecting us, and they are managing what's going on in our solar system, whatever that is. I don't know, but I wish someone would start talking about it. I don't mean in this room. I mean, you know, somebody from NASA or whoever, because there's so much being speculated about it that I'm afraid it's going to turn into another end of times, you know, scenario, and it doesn't need to be that way. Okay, so again, like they were saying, that we are tuned to the frequency of the Earth, so we can assume if the Earth's frequency changes, we're also going to change, and I'm excited about that. I think that could be a very positive thing. And I think we'd be better prepared for this change if we hadn't been suppressed for our whole lives on some very, universal truths, such as real physics and space travel through the cosmos. The math is based on 3, 6, 9, not 5 and 10. Okay, David Wilcock and a few others go into that and talk about it. Even Nassim Haramein, some of these amazing astrophysicists and quantum physicists are talking in the same way, and I have a link to them at the end as well. Also that, we can tap into the source field, the cosmic knowledge, just by meditating and activating our pineal gland and becoming more psychically conscious. I think these spheres are really giving us time to wake up. That's what I really think is happening. So this is my theory. I didn't read it, but I'm sure you read it. This is a quote on the top from Leonardo da Vinci. There are 3 classes of people: those who see when they are shown, and those who do not see. And what I find interesting in each of these columns is they're basically showing the same pattern, the same geometry, whether it's in the first column, the ancient religious calendars, the second column, which is the CERN particle accelerator and church windows, the stained glass windows. The third column is the cymatic frequencies of human vowel sounds. The fourth column is mathematical constants of physics. The fifth column is planetary orbitals. The sixth column is DNA sequencing, and the seventh column is DNA from the top-down view, so is number 8. And then in the ninth column, the last one, is the particle collisions and near-Earth orbits, or objects. The other thing is, down in the bottom left corner, that's what our solar system really looks like as it travels through space. This elliptical, view that we learned in school is really not quite accurate. And that bottom left is what's really happening, and that heliosphere that's egg-shaped, we're traveling in it like that. Also, you can see in the third over, they have some of the geometry is 3, 6, 9. Okay, so I can't get into the math lesson, we don't have time, but if that fascinates you, I encourage you to look at it. So we're nearing the end. Now, I believe that if we do have this solar flash, it will facilitate our full potential. And we are complex electrodynamic beings. As we heard, the Schumann resonance frequencies coincide with human brain waves, affecting brainwave generation, homeostasis, healing, and psychic abilities. As human beings, we are extraordinary. We have extraordinary potentials. So don't be afraid of the change. I would embrace it. And I encourage you all to talk about it, and talk about what you're feeling, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're dreaming, and what you're thinking, because a lot of people have been talking to me up in the Lakes region, and I do a lot of private meetings because people are still not ready to talk about it openly, but people are seeing a lot of things, and things are coming through in dreams as well, a lot more frequently than they used to be. So I'm going to answer some questions in a minute, and while I do that, I'm going to leave up this screen, and this lists a lot of the references and source materials that I use for this specific presentation. And if you would like to talk about anything further, I will be here all day tomorrow, so I can certainly see you. And if you actually want a copy of any of this, I can email it to you. I have business cards, and I'm happy to email and share that sort of thing. My final comment before I take questions is that the magnetic field of our hearts is 5,000 times stronger than the magnetic field of our brain, okay? And I encourage you all to start looking into that. When it comes to these higher abilities that people are talking about with the activation of our DNA, when we can use the magnetic field of our heart, you know how everyone says, do it with all your heart. You've heard that expression, okay? There's a reason for that, because your heart is very powerful. And if you can activate your pineal gland and link it with that energy from your heart, that is how people say we can create our own portals and go anywhere we want once we have those abilities. But all that kind of esoteric, mystical school knowledge has been suppressed from us on purpose. And I think it's time that we need to start talking about it and look at it's like everyone today, the presenters have been talking about, it's not just nuts and bolts anymore. There is a lot more going on, and we're just starting to learn of it. Okay, so I'm going to leave this up, and I'd be happy to take some questions now if you have any. Yes. Well, they're saying between now and 2024. That's what the prediction is. Some of the secret space program insiders and whistleblowers are saying that our space program people have known this for quite some time. And the fear-mongering people are saying that's why so many countries have been building out subterranean cities and places because they plan on going underground for this event. And I'm in the line of thinking that we don't need to do that. If you're ready to evolve to the next existence from third density to fourth density, I think we're just going to take this ride with the Earth and we're all going to be just fine. So anyway, I don't want to get preachy. So another question. Any other questions? Well, I thank you very much for coming and staying at the end.